Hello, and welcome to What in the Mystical Hell podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Jobin, and this is my co-host, Lauren Aviance.
Hi, everybody. This is Lauren. Good to hear you.
So for tonight's topic, we are going to talk about books and authors. Not witchy authors, actually, like you might think that we would be, but we're going to talk about authors that brought us to a more mystical mindset. So these authors made us think about magic and the mystical in new ways, and at least in my case, opened up our minds to the possibilities of new worlds. So Lauren, what authors did you bring to the table today?
Well, I have Grimm's, the Brothers Grimm's, and L. Frank Baum, Wizard of Oz, and C.S. Lewis.
Nice.
And Edgar Allen Poe.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I have Terry Brooks, Raymond E. Feist, David Eddings, and Stephen King.
Right on.
And then I kind of tie in a little bit with Neil Gaiman, too. I know he's a hot topic, but I kind of have him there as well.
Right on.
All right, I'm going to let you start.
Okay. The Grimm's fairy tales were my childhood entree into the magical world, the mystical world. One of my favorites was Snow White and Rose Red, which is kind of a different twist on the Snow White tale.
Yeah.
And one of the books were generally written in the early 1800s based off of stories from the late 1700s to early 1800s. And all of the sources for them come from the wonder of what is happening around us. Most of the stories were based off of folklore, based off of, any witch in any tale was usually an old crone. But also a beauty as well. And the magic that would happen, like, for example, Beauty and the Beast, we know it as this romantic tale. Grimm's fairy tales weren't as romantic.
No, they were gruesome.
They were gruesome. And the idea of this creature having had been another entity similar to skinwalkers or similar to changelings. And they derived all of those, they pulled all of those tales from folklore. They pulled all those tales from things that were mysterious out in the wilderness, the darkness. Wolves are often in the stories because they're scary. And so the stories are a way of trying to reason or rationalize what we're experiencing as humans. They had to believe at the time in the mystical. They had to for these stories to be real to a lot of people. Similarly to the stories of vampires. There are people who still firmly believe that there are vampires living and functioning in their communities.
Well, there kind of are, but...
Yeah, but we have a perspective that if there was something actually feeding off of us in that way, we'd have some idea of it. And I don't mean like psychic vampires. I mean like...
Well, there are sanguinarians.
Yes.
So people that do supplement their diet with blood. I don't know anyone that is their sole diet. But Bram Stoker, that's another author right there.
Yeah.
That just kind of leads you right into it.
Absolutely. The mystical, the scary, and that what vampirism comes from, the stories of vampirism come from digging up old graves, digging up recently deceased graves. And they were trying to rationalize or reason out how this could happen, and they came up with vampires.
Mm-hmm.
That seems reasonable, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, what we know now about science as compared to what they knew back then, of course. Ooh, pardon. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I guess somebody didn't want me talking about that. But what we know, the differences that we know, obviously, the signs that they used to think that a body, needed to be staked because it was the undead were things like, the hair and nails growing, which we know the shrinkage of your flesh
Right.
causes that phenomenon.
Right.
We know so much more now, but, they also have tales of, and rationally we say that, the tales where you see the scratches on the inside of the coffin.
Right.
We realize now with modern day science that people were declared dead that weren't actually dead, and they were buried prematurely. But that, that's a whole nother topic that we could go into.
Yes. Sorry.
No.
I strayed.
I find vampires incredibly fascinating. But like I said, I do know some, I'm not sure if sanguinarian is the correct word. I believe that it is. But I wasn't prepared to talk about vampires. But I do know vampires that are both psychic vampires and a combination of sanguinarian and psychic vampires.
Mm-hmm.
But the brothers Grimm's folk tales are very, very gruesome.
Yes.
I think, later generations, and for my kids, were raised on these Disney movies that we think, oh, these fairy tales are so sweet and lovely, but they killed not Cinderella, they killed Snow White's ass like 7 times.
Yeah.
You want to talk about undead.
The poor Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah, the Little Mermaid. Elsa. Right?
Yeah.
Who else? Sleeping. I don't know. Was there a Grimm's fairy tale around Sleeping Beauty?
I think there was.
That one I don't know as well.
And she dies.
Yeah. I mean, Pocahontas, her whole life, they did her wrong telling her story, Disney, because that girl's life was nothing like the movie.
No.
So we see all of these tales, and we get a really sanitized version through Disney. But when you start reading these old tales, not just the Grimm brothers, Hans Christian Andersen,
Yeah.
You really see these grim facets of lives, because their lives were hard. Their lives weren't this Disney princess version. I'm going to be singing to the damn birds, and the mice are going to come help me do my housework, and they're going to turn into this beautiful carriage.
Right.
Oh, Cinderella. That's another one. The stepsisters were cutting off parts of their feet to get those shoes on.
Yeah.
Girl.
And then Cinderella put her foot in that bloody, nasty thing.
And they pecked out the sister's eyes at the end of that story.
Yeah.
Ooh. Talk about not looking at people with ill will. I like that. You know what? When I was doing research, I didn't even think of any of those stories.
I was thinking about where my childhood fascination came from. And it's all that wonder and that answering questions that we don't, finding the answers to things we have questions about. And the Grimm's fairy tales answer a lot of those. There were, similarly are Aesop tales, but those are more about things that happen in nature.
Yeah.
Which I grew up really closely relating to the Aesop tales. And
yeah. And those things are a lot of common sense stuff.
Yeah.
Is the moral of the stories.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the Anansi tales come into my life too, is from the Jamaican and Caribbean.
Yeah.
And they all had an influence on me. I always wondered why the witch was such a bad person.
Yeah, right. Well, so yeah, I didn't think of the fairy tales, but I didn't get the Grimm version of fairy tales when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I got the sanitized version of the fairy tales. So the author that I really thought of in the beginning was this author called Terry Brooks. And, when you're in school, you go to the school library, and this series of books was in the library. So Terry Brooks wrote this series about this magical land called Landover. And the book itself is called Magical Kingdom, for sale, sold. So it's the story of this man, Ben Holiday, who's like a lawyer, and he's in this really bad place in his life because he's lost his wife and his son in a car accident. And he's looking for anything. And I think the part that kind of intrigued me in this story is he's got this department store. Remember when like Emporium used to put out the wish book, or maybe it was Macy's that would put out the wish book every year at the holidays,
mm-hmm.
and you could look through it and you'd see this really crazy expensive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could buy a castle with a moat or something, really outlandish things that nobody in their right mind, like nobody we knew, were trying to buy, right?
Right.
But it was just, you would look at this and you would daydream and, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be so cool if you could blah, blah, blah. So he gets this book like this. And one of the things that's listed for sale is a magical kingdom. Now he's he's down in the dumps, not really feeling it. So he decides, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Well, as it turns out, it actually is a magical land, and the way that you get to this land is like, it's been probably a good 30 years since I've read this book, but
mm-hmm.
it's something totally innocuous. Like you go through the subway, and there's a door, and then you get to this magical land, like, and there's a paladin, and there are wizards, and there are centaurs. And I think what kind of started fascinating me about this at first was there was this magical land and a bunch of creatures that I'd never heard about before.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also that it was so accessible from our world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about how when I was a kid that we had experiences in places that we were later told they could not exist. But we found them easily enough as kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just something that I found by myself. It was my little friend group. Like, we would always play at this fountain that was in the middle of all of our backyards.
Mm-hmm.
Except the reality of those backyards is that they all butt up to each other. And none of the yards had a fountain. Yet 6 of us played there almost every day during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really intrigued by the fact of there are places that you can get to in our world that nobody else knows about.
Yeah.
But if you have the belief, you can get there. And that's what like my first step. I mean, there were definitely a bunch of other authors going to that. And this guy eventually, he becomes when he buys the land, he becomes the king. And spoiler alert, I don't know that anybody that's in our listening audience is going to run out and buy these books. But he has to learn how this land is failing. And he has to learn how to save the land and all the people that live there. And as it turns out, and there's this paladin that comes and saves him every time he's in trouble. What he later finds out is it's his belief that can save the land.
Mm-hmm.
And the paladin is actually a physical representation of his belief. Which is weird because in the beginning he doesn't believe, and yet the paladin still comes. But I think in the beginning it's very hard to see him. He's kind of flimsy, he's kind of ethereal, and
mm-hmm.
like it's just like you're seeing like almost even a vision of it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, it was a very fun series. I don't think I read all of it, but I read a few books in the series. But that kind of ties in with your Frank Baum.
Yeah. Yes. The Wizard of Oz mm-hmm. is, without a doubt, one of the most influential childhood memories, not just of myself, but for millions
mm-hmm.
of people.
Well, we watch that every year.
Who wouldn't want to be Dorothy being swept away to a magical kingdom, going to the Emerald City? Everybody wanted to do that. All of that stuff. The Raggedy Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Lion, mm-hmm. all of that stuff. And, you would fantasize about being in a different kingdom with different friends and magical friends. And trees that yelled at you and threw apples and
while
monkeys.
everybody knows the first book, The Wizard
Right.
of Oz, there's a whole collection of these books that are just all these adventures that not only Dorothy had, but later wasn't it like her daughter or her granddaughter that
I think
had?
so, yeah. And I would, and this is just the movie, I would watch the movie every year because they would play it every year.
Yes.
And it was magical just seeing it go from black and white to color.
Yeah.
Especially if you hadn't grown up with a color TV.
Yeah, just to kind of see that. And it kind of, we look at it now as adults and you think about the symbolism there, that you're going from your drab, sepia tint or black and white life to you're on now this adventure and everything is brighter. And it's kind of like, when we go on road trips now.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh. Like it's all bright and shiny now when it, really we're going through weird gas stations and crazy stuff happening on the road as you're driving down these interstates. But you're on this adventure, so it makes everything better.
Right.
The other thing I kind of like about those books is it shows that, like, I love that line in the end, like, you had the power all along.
Yeah.
And it shows all of these characters, the traits that they thought that they were missing, they actually had.
Right. And that's something that, especially as a kid, you strive for. You want to be courageous. You want to be strong of heart and love.
Yeah.
And so it was a fantastic world to me. And I found myself fully engrossed in, because we had the kind of the abridged versions as kids of the books.
Yeah.
And I would lose myself in the books.
I think it's funny now, kids have Harry Potter and there's all the books are great, you have the issues with the authors. But back then we had so many series that dealt with the same kind of thing, and we never even realized it was right under our noses.
Yeah.
So I've actually bought a lot of these different series for the kids. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We got Rick Riordan, the Percy Jackson series.
Okay.
But yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
Demigods.
Yeah.
That you don't know. You're just living your life, and then one day it's like, hey, how you doing? And that's where a lot of the books that are on my list kind of come from. So I did read the C.S. Lewis, who I know is another one of your authors.
Yeah.
I did read those, but I also had Raymond E. Feist, who was this author writes of this world Midkemia, and the first character that you meet in the first series, because there's 2 series dealing with this world. And in the first series, you find this guy that's basically a slave. And he becomes a magician's apprentice, but he can't figure out the... Oh, I was like, why do we always have some weird ass shit that happens when we're here? Yeah, this wasn't that bad though. This is just a truck driving down
a
Jack London
road.
Yeah,
a non-street.
Yeah, the non-road here. But honestly, that's not the weirdest thing that we've ever had happen.
No.
The dog still wins.
Well, the thing that caught my eye was the floating light behind the screen.
Yeah.
In the window.
So we were like, what's that from? Yeah. So you have this person, and he eventually becomes a magician. But his magic doesn't work the way all the rest of the magicians work. For me, that spoke a lot, because when I first started practicing, the way I do magic is not the traditional way that practitioners do magic, or the practitioners that I knew and I started reading about in the witch books. Right? They were all Wiccan. I'm not a Wiccan.
Right.
They were, they did things by ritual. I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So these kind of touch things for me that, okay, here's this character that doesn't do things the way anybody else does them, but he's capable of amazing things with this. And I think going back to C.S. Lewis, which you're going to talk about now, that's that same thing. You have the potential with your gifts that you don't think you have.
For C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and there are other books that it's a series as well. And I've read a good portion of them.
I think I've read all of them, yeah.
And but specifically, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is everybody's entree to this world. And I can't tell you, as a kid, I searched the back of every fucking closet I could find.
I know, but the rub is that when you look for it, you don't find it.
I created worlds in closets. I loved the idea of a wardrobe. Do you know, when I became an adult, I bought a wardrobe just so that I would have a wardrobe. And the magic, I still to this day love a Turkish delight.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of my favorite treats.
And it's a candy, right?
Yeah, it's like a gummy.
Yeah.
But it's made with apple pectin,
mm-hmm.
and they're delicious, and they're covered in powdered sugar.
See, I think when I first started reading the book, I thought it was some kind of meat, like a little meat treat or something, like rolled up meat. And then somebody later was like, no, it's like candy.
Oh, it's so delicious. And I'm still in love with them, enamored with them because of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of Aslan, this majestic lion
mm-hmm.
who was the leader of the army. And these kids, it was these 4 kids.
Random kids.
Yeah. And I identified with that. I thought I could be that too.
Yeah.
And I could be a king or queen of a magical land.
Yeah.
I lived in a fantasy land as a kid. Reality was not my thing.
Reality sucked. But here's the thing that I didn't think about it now, but I think about it now. When they talk about the old magics, here's this completely magical world. You've got witches, you've got fauns, you've got talking animals, you've got kings and queens, but it also, some of their things tie back into, daughters of Eve, sons of Adam.
Yes.
So it ties into the religious things that I learned growing up as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because they all tied together, I was like, can my 2 worlds tie together? You start to wonder this stuff.
Yeah. For myself, it was everything was magical, and that was probably one of the first bad guys in the story that really scared me.
Yeah.
The Ice Queen.
Oh yeah.
She
wasn't fooling around.
No.
She was a savage.
Savage.
Life goals.
Yeah. She just liked a certain temperature and wanted to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I still have the same sense of foreboding about her.
Yeah.
She will carry a light of terror in my life for the rest of my life.
Well, I mean, she had no hesitation. She was like, I'm gonna slice and dice this damn lion.
Right.
She was not playing around.
No.
And and then when she's like, these are the old magics, you're bound by the old magics. I was like, oh, and that it didn't go well for her.
No.
But I can't remember, in the later books, does it explain who she is? Like, does it come about?
I don't remember.
I can't remember if she gets a backstory or not. I know a lot of people got backstory there.
Yeah.
That you meet, you see how they come about as you go through the series. Which is kind of funny. I think they end up tying a later character into the person that becomes the professor whose house that they're at.
Mm.
I feel like that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was just so much speculation with C.S. Lewis later, like people had said, oh, this book was really like these 4 children actually died in the bombing.
Mm.
And this is an analogy for like heaven and stuff like that. I'm like, this is a weird look at heaven is weird. Like you'd be fighting with witches and animals and then the goblins, and when they describe like the evil creatures that are helping her,
mm-hmm.
like he gets into some descriptions.
Yeah.
I also like the redemption aspect that you get
With Edmund?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself drawn to characters in books that you consider bad, but then later do good things because, at the base of it, even though they've done bad things, they are still at their core
mm-hmm.
good,
mm-hmm.
or at least morally ambiguous. But I like the idea of redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Disney did the Once Upon a Time series,
mm-hmm.
remember that?
Yeah.
They have
Yes.
the evil queen,
Yes.
who later becomes a hero.
Right.
I don't think she ever gets her happy ending that she's looking for, but she does get a happy ending. And it's this fact because you learn the backstories of why these bad people, and sometimes people are just bad, sometimes they're just born rotten,
mm-hmm.
right? And you can't control that. But other people, is evil born or is it created? So you see a lot of once you get the backstory that they create,
mm-hmm.
It's very it's interesting to see how these arcs go.
Right.
Let's see. So one of the notes that I just wrote myself for why I like some of these authors that I like is they describe worlds separate from our own, yet easy to find if you know where to look.
Right.
Or in the case of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, if you're in the right place at the right time.
Right.
It introduces the concept that some people see and experience things that other people don't.
Mm.
So, in one of the Landover books, the later books, he's having visions of the people in this magical land
mm-hmm.
while he's back in New York. Or
mm-hmm.
It was either New York or Chicago. And his friends are trying to get him help because they think he's nutty.
Right.
But he's having visions of these people from this magical land that need his help. And so he's got to decide, okay, am I crazy? Do I need to get help? Or am I just going to lean into this thing that everyone around me is telling me is nutso?
Right.
Right? And I think it was a Neil Gaiman book, American Gods. Well, it wasn't the book, but it was the series that they made from American Gods,
mm-hmm.
Where one of the characters says, you can think you're crazy, or you can realize the world is a crazy place and you have a unique perspective into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a life-changing line for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at these books now with that lens, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sometimes you have to lean into the crazy to see the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that. And they also taught me about true bravery and standing up for my beliefs. And that sometimes you just have to keep believing, even when everything else around you tells you that to just give up.
Right.
So my initial fantasy authors really, that's what those really taught me.
Mm-hmm. Mine are always kind of good versus evil.
Yeah. Well, and that dichotomy is everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? I just like the fact that it's not as cut and dried as all that.
Mm-hmm. I find that the little characters,
mm-hmm.
the ones that don't get the big attention, those are the ones that always got my attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that, like the little person can create a big wave.
Yeah. Were you a Mr. Tumnus?
Yes.
Yes.
And the same thing in Grimm's fairy tales. Any of the smaller characters always caught my attention. And with the smaller characters, there's a little bit of, there's always heart. There's always some magical point to them, I think. And I find that I connect with them a lot better. I always built them. I always created them in my fantasy world as bigger characters with bigger roles.
Well, when you think about it, a lot of those characters are the tipping point characters, right? Because there's that scene in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe where they get into her castle, and there's all these statues of... Stop looking at the damn door.
I didn't. I looked at the sign.
Where, they come in there, all these statues, and they realize that all these statues are people that she's turned to stone.
Right.
But it's not until... It doesn't... it hits them, but it doesn't really hit them until Lucy finds Tumnus.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, shit. This was our person that brought us in. And that's when it becomes real. And that's when I think they get the heart to keep pushing, where I think, they're kind of at that tipping point where they don't know if they want to just give up and go home.
Yeah.
Or if they want to keep fighting. And I think that those characters are those linchpin characters that tip them back into the balance of who they're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Those were always fun for me.
Yeah.
My next author is more of my adolescence, which was Edgar Allen Poe, who... all of the darkness that you could imagine in the world.
Oh, yeah.
The House of Usher. Oh, my God. Telltale Heart. Telltale Heart scared the living Jesus out of me. There's actually a series that I don't know where to find it. It's a video series where they do Edgar Allan Poe stories, and it's beautiful. It's done. It's an animation, and it's beautiful, and it's haunting, and it's dark. And they also did a series called The House of Usher.
Okay, I do remember that series. Yeah,
super good.
Yeah,
it was a super good adaptation, smart, well acted. And I really enjoyed it because of my love of Edgar Allan Poe and his stories and his poetry.
All right. Confession time.
Yes.
I never really got into Edgar Allan Poe. I read required reading.
Yeah.
Which was The Telltale Heart. But the rest of them I never really... I think that was probably maybe the first instance in my life of something that I eventually have to grow into. And I have not given Edgar Allan Poe a sufficient chance in my adult years. I may just do that again, though.
I think the thing that is part of loving Edgar Allan Poe is that you have to be really tapped into that darkness in you.
Yeah.
And see the beauty in it.
Yeah.
Which I think that he saw. I think that he saw beauty in death. I think that he saw beauty in the odd and the obscure and the cryptic.
Yeah.
He wrote about people having the bells in their graves.
Yeah. It was a real thing, yeah.
And I think he had, I want to say he had one put into his, but I can't remember if he did or not. There's a person who takes cognac and a rose to his grave every year. I think on his birthday, and he talks and speaks to the lost person in you, the lonely person in you, the one that feels like there's nobody who understands me. And that's what I really got from Poe, is this feeling of kindred spirits that stretched across hundreds of years or 100 years and touched me.
Yeah.
And that's what I now that I talk about it, I really want to go back, and I think I've got on my Audible, I've got the complete collection of Edgar Allan Poe.
Nice.
So that I can listen to it whenever I want. And I really want to, now that we've been talking about this, go back and revisit some more of the stories.
Yeah.
And I think listening to them books on tape is a great way for anybody to experience it, because you can just put it on and not have to sit down and focus on the words as closely. But he talked about the darkness in people. And they were morality plays as well. They were about good and evil, and what's really truly good and what's really truly evil.
You talk about how rare that is.
Yes, and always, a lot of times, the good person in the stories was really the bad person, and the one that was perceived as the bad person was really the good person, and just misunderstood.
That happens more often than people want to admit.
Yep. I mean, we live in a world full of social awkwardness and people making assumptions about another person.
Yeah.
That's probably the author that made me open to, instead of looking at the exterior of a person, looking at the interior of them.
Yeah. Just giving people a chance, yeah.
Yeah. What else you got?
My other one, my big author here was Stephen King.
Right on.
So, as I'm going through these mid authors, I'm thinking about how good and evil are just like terms, and they're just gray area terms. And I've thought that for the longest time. I say that kind of a lot, but as children, we're taught that things are set in stone. You are good or you are bad, and you don't ever want to be bad. Because, bad kids get the shit end of the stick, right?
Right.
But as you get older, once you hit, even before your preteen years, you see how the fallacies that are in that kind of thinking, right? Because you should never lie, but it's okay if mom has to tell a white lie to spare someone's feelings. Those little things that just kind of push the envelope.
The nuances.
But if lying is bad, then all lying is bad. White lies are bad, but it's okay if mom does it.
Right.
So you start seeing that good people do bad things. Bad people also do good things. Hitler liked dogs. Does it negate all the horrible shit he did? Absolutely not.
Right.
But he wasn't on one thing.
Yeah.
So I flip my thing. People are we're all a gray area. We make good and bad choices. But it's so rare to find someone. It's just as rare to find someone who's truly, truly good. It's just as rare to find someone that's truly, truly evil.
Right.
Maybe we're seeing more of that now. And I was talking with a couple at the bar last week, and we were talking about things like the tragedies in the news, like kidnappings and stuff like that. We were specifically talking about kidnapping and how when we were kids, we didn't hear about kids getting kidnapped as much.
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, did it just not happen as much back then? Or was it just not broadcast in your face 24 hours a day? There might be just as many kidnappings now as there were back then. We just didn't know about them. But here you get alerts on your phone when stuff happens. I get alerts on my phone about things that happen across the country.
Right.
So we have this sense of what's good and what's bad, but really it's morally gray people making decisions that are good and bad. So Stephen King really helped me blur those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And Neil Gaiman too. He's a hot topic. He's on the kibosh list right now. But if you read his characters, you realize that the constructs of good and evil are just pretty little boxes that we're trying to shove things in. Not everybody fits in those boxes. And with Stephen King, you have good and bad characters, but they don't always stay that way. Sometimes their actions are really morally neutral. And that's just how life works. I don't know that I consider myself a good or a bad person. I consider myself gray.
Sure. Likewise.
I do really great things sometimes. I'm very kind.
Yeah.
But I'm not nice. And sometimes I'm shitty.
Yeah. Well,
I still try to be kind, but I don't have a lot of patience for the entitlement that people have for things. And you know what? It makes me a little snarky, and I don't really have a filter. So I come across as very not nice. And I'm unapologetic about it.
Hey, I almost got into a fight today because I was looking at somebody.
Yeah, see?
But I was looking at him the wrong way, apparently.
But you were like, let's throw it down. I don't care.
I also am in the gray area.
Yeah.
I'd say I probably lean a little more to the dark area.
Yeah, I know that in a lot of my magical dealings, I am definitely more on the side of shadow work, dark energy work. I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way. But part of it is some of the books that I read, I identified with a lot of these characters that are supposed to be really bad.
Yeah.
And like if you, some of the Stephen King books, and I didn't really write about this one, but in the book Needful Things, there's that guy that gives everybody what they need, right? He's got what you need, but it goes sideways on you.
Right.
And, what I think about is, when I'm looking at this character who's supposed to be the bad character.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he just had stuff. Those people could have got by without that stuff, but then they had to crazy want it. They didn't just have to want it. They had to crazy want it and go overboard giving in their desires and not having any control.
Yeah.
And that's why most of these people go awry.
Right.
Except for there are a few characters that are able to stay in control. Right. And they're eventually what save this town.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, is it really his fault if y'all... First one's always free. No, I'm just kidding. But, he was exploiting people's lack of control.
Right.
But to give him the entirety of the blame, like these people are all good and they were just taken advantage of and he's all bad, like that doesn't fly.
Yeah. It's like Thinner.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the bad guys are the gypsies, right?
Yeah.
But
never mind that what did Bro do to get the mark?
Yeah.
I think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the first full book that I read from Stephen King was The Stand. And that's got the good and bad dichotomy, the entirety of the book, right?
Right.
Light and dark, redemption. No matter how good and bad we are in our lives, we can still make right choices or wrong choices in the end. And then there's the whole captain trips, right? And in this day and age, with everything going on right now, like we're almost at some crazy, it's going to be Dune in a few years, But the captain trips, so if anyone has not read this book, this is about, what do they say? They say one of Sally's 7 vials gets opened up. So basically there is an infectious disease that somehow gets out of the lab. Someone gets infected with something that has like a 99.5 kill rate. And it's a horrific way to die. And it spreads across the country. And within weeks, I'm going to say weeks to months, 99% of the population is dead.
Right.
Now, most of that 99% is people that got sick and died. But then there is fallout afterwards. Like, the little kids that, let's say a little kid is, like, the parents die, but he's okay. Well, he's outside playing, doesn't see that there was a covered well, falls through and dies. You know, there's the second-hand deaths because of that stuff. Or someone that steps on a nail and doesn't realize that they get gangrene and they die because there's no doctors.
Right.
You know, that scenario is very real in this day and age that we live in.
Yeah.
You know, there is biological warfare all over the place.
Right.
You know, or the potentiality for it. So that really kind of spoke to me. You know, and that could happen to us any day, and we'd have to figure out how to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. So what happens to your morality when you are trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world? There are no laws.
Right.
There are no consequences.
Right.
Basically, it's a free-for-all to do. It's Lord of the Flies now.
Right.
What happens to people's morality then? Are they still going to be quote-unquote good? Or are they going to do whatever it takes to survive, even if some of those things are quote-unquote evil things?
Yeah.
I think that they're going to do what they can to survive. You know, once things stabilize, I think good and bad will come back up, you know? But I think that when things are wild, human beings are going to be wild. So this theme of when the shit goes sideways, the choices people make, you see it in other books. Carrie.
Yeah.
The character of Carrie is essentially a sweet, gentle person.
Yeah.
Who has gifts that she has no control over. And she has an abusive parent who thinks that she is the devil.
Right.
In the end, that quote-unquote prophecy of her being evil, it seems to come about because she does kill a whole damn high school, pretty much.
Right.
And she kills her mother. But is Carrie truly evil, or is she a good person that was driven to evil acts?
Right.
Because she really tried to stop it. And she did actually manage to save a few people. But she was horrifically tormented in high school.
Right.
Due to things, you know, having this backwards thinking mom that didn't teach her anything about life. So she was completely unaware when different stuff started happening to her body.
Right.
And she was tormented by really, and if y'all are listening to this and you don't know how teenage girls work, they are awful. They are piranha. They will eat the weak and eat their young. That's just how it works. I know that guys are bad, but girls keep it on the DL. You don't see girls shoving people into lockers.
No.
They do worse stuff.
Right. Well,
it's all psychological though.
we're more likely to poison as opposed to shoot.
Right. Or they will fuck up your brain. Like, they will make you feel so bad about yourself. You see how many, you know, people have had eating disorders or cutters.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to hide that.
Yeah.
You know, because girls make it psychological. Guys go for brute force.
Right.
Girls attack your brain. There's a book, The Dead Zone, which was a series, which I actually loved because it had Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
But in the book, Johnny Smith is this guy that he's in a horrific car accident, and parts of his brain I think we all know that someone like Albert Einstein, who was a certified genius, only used about 10% of his brain.
Right.
So there's a whole other 90% that we could be maximizing on. So in this book, Johnny's brain, after this accident, starts finding new neural pathways because there are parts of his brain that are dead because of the accident.
Right.
So it forges new neural pathways, and one of these pathways taps into what they call the dead zone, and he gets visions. So he's a good man and tries to help people as much as he can. But one of the people that he gets a vision for is this guy that becomes a politician, and he sees the end game that happens with this guy that's the politician.
Right.
Is basically the destruction of our...
Of the
I
world.
basically saw Donald Trump. But it's basically the destruction of our society, like World War III happening.
Right.
So he tries all these non-violent ways to get this guy out of power, to expose this guy for who he is. Not working. In the end, he tries to make a decision to kill him. So here is a good person who does good things, yet driven to an evil act.
Right.
Right? If you're killing an evil person, is it still an evil act?
Right.
Morality questions, right?
Yeah.
If all killing is evil, even if you're killing an evil person. Like,
Right.
if you could go back in time and kill Hitler, would you?
That's a hard question.
It's a
to
hard
answer.
question, right? The easy answer is absolutely.
Right.
But then you don't know what other backlash. What if killing Hitler brings into power somebody that's worse?
Mm-hmm. Or all of the things that we've learned since then, or
Don't
experienced
happen.
since then.
What's like the old argument about JFK?
Yeah.
You know, he died very tragically and very young.
Yeah.
And I do feel that it was a tragedy. But he's also a president that put us into war.
Yeah.
We have idolized him as a fantastic president, but he was a womanizer. He was an adulterer.
Right.
You know, he put us into war. There are a lot of things that he did that were not okay.
Mm.
But we have put him on a pedestal because of how he died. What if he had been the worst president in the world? You know, it's you never know.
No, I say the same thing about Nixon. Everybody looks at me crazy when I say Nixon's my favorite president. But when I ask them, what did he do so wrong? Everybody stops and goes, oh, what did he do so wrong? It was Watergate, and
Yeah. he was one of the chess pieces that fell.
Right. And he was impeached and he quit. He he resigned his position as president and left instead of...
Well, here's another question for you.
Yeah.
What did Bill Clinton do that was so wrong?
Whitewater.
Okay, fair enough. But what's the big thing everybody talks about when you think about why Bill Clinton was
Lewinsky.
impeached? Yes.
Right.
That's the whole thing that they do. But we also were in a surplus there was no financial deficit.
Right.
You know, we had a lot of programs coming online that helped people.
Right.
You know, so in the grand scheme of things, he was actually a pretty good president. But he also did some bad shit. Right? What's that saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely?
Yeah. Well, just for the listeners to know, Nixon was a Quaker, and he started the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, which is...
now getting defunct, but okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And he also was the first president to put Native American families back together.
Oh, I did not actually know that.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
But he also opened up trade with China, which was something that they didn't think anybody could do.
Yeah.
And he also, the greatest thing he ever did was he made fat, bloated Elvis an honorary DEA agent. Let that sink in.
Sorry, you said fat, bloated Elvis.
Well, that's who he made.
I know. Oh, Lord.
He was all drugged up and a DEA agent.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. Okay. So my whole thing about morally gray is when I see characters that are morally gray, it shows me a more honest world.
Yeah.
You know, I learned that regardless of how you think of yourself, at some point you're going to be the villain in somebody's story.
Sure. Boy, haven't I been.
Yeah. These stories taught me more about critical thinking. They taught me to look deeper and dig deeper. You know, because maybe what you see on the surface isn't actually the truth.
Right.
And for me, because I do walk a darker path, and the things that I deal with and the things that I am are not easy to label, it was refreshing to see characters that had redeeming qualities.
Mm-hmm.
So Good Omens, which is a Neil Gaiman book.
Mm-hmm.
Good Omens has the two main characters are a devil and a demon and an angel that work together on things, right? And Diana and I like to joke around that I'm Crowley and she's my brain started Aziraphale, something fell. She's the angel, But during our workings, like you find that they're both very endearing characters,
right?
But you find out that the demon has just as much invested in stopping the Antichrist from destroying the world as the angel does.
Yeah.
And then you see the other angels that our angel in question, Aziraphale, is dealing with, are not, like, they have their morality, they have their orders, but they're not very kind. They're not very empathetic. Some of them are, but the big ones that are in charge are generals all the way. And people that fall by the wayside are collateral damage.
Right.
And in my dealings with Celestials versus Infernals, I found that to be pretty accurate.
Angels are
dicks.
Yeah.
Angels are dicks. But because the thing is that what is it? If the only tool that you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. I know I'm phrasing it completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But they're about the end game.
Yeah.
And the most expedient way to get there.
Yeah.
And if that end game to stop the Antichrist is killing a little boy, that's okay. But what if he could be good? What if it's nature versus nurture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it shows this demon who actually is pretty chill, and he's like, no, we don't want to do that way. And there's a little, I won't say sexual undertones, but between the two characters there's romantic undertones, because they've literally been together for a millennia, working opposite each other but always coming into contact, and they like each other,
right? And
they more than like each other because that's pretty much most of the closest thing to a companion either one of them has had for millennia. It's kind of like watching The Odd Couple, right? There's Oscar and Felix,
right,
from the show The Odd Couple,
right,
who are complete opposites, yet they make it work. And at some point, that they're codependent, and they're not happy without each other. Which isn't romantic, but it's a platonic love. And you see how these opposites can kind of work. For me, these books showed me how things aren't always what they appear. As most people are not. All right, so we're sitting here and we keep hearing little knocks around the place. But you looked at the office door. We're looking at the front door.
I don't know if you'll want to keep this in or edit it out.
What?
But you keep talking about Gaiman as being a controversial.
Right now, he's there is a lot of backlash going on for Neil Gaiman because there's been some scandals that have been popping up around him. A sexual scandal. Part of that sexual scandal has some BDSM tones to it. I'll keep it in. I don't edit anything out of these. What people get is what they get. So right now he is on the do not support list. He says that the thing. So a lot of the actions that I have heard that were the victims' complaints.
Yes.
Are things that are done in the BDSM community with consent.
Right.
Now, the ultimate question here is, was there consent? He says there was, she says there wasn't. So, gray area.
Right.
Because no one really knows the truth except for the two of them.
Right.
Now, his ex-wife is coming in and adding more veggies into the stew.
Mm-hmm.
And stirring it up really well. Mm-hmm. Saying, well, I saw this, that, and the other. Okay, she may well have. Or she might be a vindictive ex.
Right.
So it's one of those things where Neil Gaiman is getting tried without, he's getting tried at the media. Mm-hmm. I can't speak one way or the other. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I don't have any knowledge of Neil Gaiman as a person.
Right.
I do know that I enjoy his books very much. Mm-hmm. And they opened up avenues for me in my life that I might not have gotten to otherwise.
Sure.
So it's one of those things, appreciate the literature, not necessarily the person. Yes. Sure. But, he had other characters that he shows lofty characters. Like if you look at Sandman. Mm-hmm. That character is, basically the Sandman, Morpheus, mm-hmm. Who creates the dreams. Mm-hmm. And it's about him opening himself up to more than what his primary function is. Mm-hmm. So it's about expanding your horizons, I feel like. So it's just, seeing these authors that touch us into different places in the mystical, mm-hmm. and how they've expanded our horizons.
Absolutely.
I think love them or hate them.
Yeah.
That's what you...
Well, I think the overall point of the stories that all of these authors told was to transport you mm-hmm. to a different reality.
Yeah.
And because none of the books that we talked about were steeped in reality, in our reality. Like, they're not a tale about a bunch of housewives.
Okay, fair.
They're stories of gods or...
Their binary box is not our day-to-day life.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that I agree with.
Yes.
However, as someone that does deal with JD in quite an odd fashion, it's they might have more meaning for me than normal people.
Sure. Fair enough.
The Edgar Allen Poe meanings behind, the meanings. I'm trying to gather my thoughts here, sorry. With the intricacies of death, mm-hmm. and working around death. And,
right.
For you, because you do a lot of, spirit work, mm-hmm. That holds a greater significance to you as well.
Sure. Yeah. That's part of what drew me to it, is that darkness, because we all fear death, right?
Yeah. Well, apparently I don't, because I'll just find another body when I'm done. The weirdness that is our lives. But no, death is most people do fear death. They have a big fear. We spend our whole lives trying not to die.
Yes.
Trying to live as long as we can, and you know what's going to happen at the end? We're going to die.
We're going to die. I don't want to age gracefully. That's my only thing. I want to fight it tooth and nail.
Oh, my old joke is, don't drink, don't smoke, eat right, exercise every day, drink a bunch of water, do everything that you're supposed to do. You know what's going to happen?
You're going to die.
You're going to die anyway. Eat the fried hot dog. Well, maybe not you. I used to say my grandpa was in his 90s, and all he wanted to do was smoke a cigar, have a beer, and eat a fried hot dog. And one of my aunts was a nurse, and she was like, "No, Daddy, that's not good for you. That's not good for you." your heart, your cholesterol. And I'm like, he's like 96. Give the man a fried fucking hot dog.
Yeah.
Right? He could drop off at any day.
Right.
Like, my poor Gramps had one of his legs amputated, so he was in a wheelchair. It was very hard for him to leave the house. He couldn't drive anymore, so he didn't have his independence. But actually, the amputation was a blessing in disguise because he had Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And both of my grandparents ended up in the same home. And they died very, very close, not too soon after another. But they didn't even recognize each other at the end.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of way is that to live?
Yeah.
Die young, stay pretty.
That's right.
But by no means search it out. I don't know if I want to be like this gracefully aging person like my mother-in-law, who is over 80. I think she's like 82.
Mm-hmm.
82 or 83. Who is, when I realized that the other day, I was like, yeah, that's wild. That's a lie. And she still, walks the dogs, has get up and go like you wouldn't believe. I either want to be like that, or I want to look like a California raisin, like wrinkles upon wrinkles, and just be round and baking cookies for grandkids. There might be rocks instead of walnuts in there. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Was that a rock? Just spit it out. It's okay. Rub some dirt in it.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. But when we were young, though, we lived life so hard.
Yeah.
We went out and we played the hard stuff, and I joke about rub some dirt in it, but when we got hurt, we just rub some dirt in it, it'll be okay. Our whole childhood was a testament to how tough can you be.
Yeah.
I mean, McCurecombe, right?
Yeah.
So now to start aging, for the record, I am 50 now. Very happy I made it to the second half of my centennial. But, everybody's cautioning me, you're getting older now. You don't want to do the things that you do. What do you mean? Don't climb up on the roof. Well, I don't make a habit of it, but sometimes you just have to climb up on the roof.
Sometimes you do.
And, and that time happened to be when I had a truck and I put a ladder in the truck and then I climbed up because I had to get the cat. Nobody else was there to get the cat. But you're getting older now. You can't be doing stuff like that. Well, who the hell else is going to do it? That's my thought. But I want to live a large life like some of these characters.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a large life that everyone sees. Maybe I'm the only one that sees it. And I'm okay with that. And then when we get tired of it, Lauren, we'll just Thelma and Louise it.
Cool. Sounds like a good plan.
Except we'd probably survive and end up in a home.
Just as long as we get to fool around with a young Brad Pitt.
Can we pick a younger, different actor? Brad Pitt is not attractive to me at all. How about a young Harrison Ford?
Very young.
Very young. Actually, Harrison Ford's pretty... I did flirt with Harrison Ford now.
Yeah, he is.
He's still pretty good looking. Sean Connery, old, not young. I didn't think he was good looking when he was young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Dane has aged very well. He is McSteamy on... Yeah, because Dreamy was the Can't Buy You Love kid. McSteamy on... I don't know. Not ER.
Chicago Hope?
No.
I know he was a doctor.
Not General Hospital. No, General Hospital was a daytime thing.
Yeah.
Oh, Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. But he played one of the love interests on Charm when he was younger.
Yeah, I don't know which one he is. I have a vague idea.
Yeah. But he aged very well. This went completely sideways.
Yeah, we digressed.
Morally gray. It's okay. Well, I guess that's all for us today, unless you have something that you would like to add in there. Any more authors that we missed?
No, not that I can think of.
Let's see. I know I'll get home tonight. I'll be like, God dog it, I could have talked about this person. It's okay. That's right. Well, I hope that you have found this episode informative, if nothing else. I thought we were amusing. We're always amusing. Join us next month when we talk about, you know what, honestly, we don't know what we're talking. We threw some ideas out there. I don't think we've sat on stone and anything we're going to talk about. But join us next month because it's probably going to be something weird. And we're probably going to be here and some crazy shit's going to happen again, as usual. But nobody came up to the door this time.
Nope.
We are making progress. Probably because we have the lights on this time.
Yeah.
But this has been another episode of What in the Mystical Hell podcast, where we like some really kind of wild authors.
Yeah. And some traditional ones,
And fairy tales are not always pretty little made-up stories with nicely wrapped in a bow. Sometimes they're very gruesome. And when things go bump in the night, we know how to bounce back. I'm Nikki Jobin. This is
Lauren Aviance.
And we'll be back with you next month. Take care.